You're watching a Zero Dark Network production. Good morning. So I want to go live here. It's Friday morning, November 17th, 0300, or what I call Zero Dark. And so as I'm developing the Zero Dark Network, just thought it might be interesting since I've been getting up every Friday for a men's Zoom call that we call Fishers of Men, 06 to 7:30. And in preparation for the day, I think I've got a Katie Christian Chamber breakfast. And so I'm going to link this to the website, zerodarknetwork.com. And it just gives me an opportunity to kind of build a community and audience of folks that are kind of challenging themselves in our times to maybe do some things a little different. Um, just got a little notice here. So let's see. First time, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I'm here in my office here in Houston, Texas. And was up at 12:30 this morning actually. And I guess I'll go into a little bit of background as to why I started making changes to my early rise schedule. I think last year I started to detect and discover the benefits of getting up at 4 a.m. I had heard over the years that, an early schedule was a success indicator. And I just noticed that I was getting tired. I don't know, around 7 or 8 in the afternoon, and same thing with my wife. And we were going to bed early as it was, and so as I just started changing the schedule to 4 a.m., I already had my excuse me 8 hours of sleep. But I made a commitment January 1st to do it regularly because I was experimenting here and there with an early rise schedule like that. But what I noticed it when I got up at 4 a.m., I had extra hours of time to plan and execute and think and journal and write down my ideas, etc., and start to get traction and implementation. So come January 1st, I decided, yes, 4 a.m. schedule, 6 days a week, not necessarily on Sunday. I can sleep late, that kind of thing. So what happened is I wound up, and I have a blog on my website. If you go to teammarketingdynamics.com, maybe I'll post this in the comments that I wrote about this early rise schedule. Even started a Facebook group called 04 a.m. for early risers, right? And of course, I noticed a new audience when I started making posts on Facebook. The people that were up at that time or were just going to bed at 4 because of their late schedule. And so this journey, was interesting, a different perspective. And, I've gotten some feedback from other folks like, wow, that's just too early, and my message to the folks that don't quite understand the journey that I discovered is like, you know what, there's the silent death of the snooze button, right? There's so much that we can accomplish, so much that we want to do, and being intentional and detecting the changes that maybe we need to make. It's not for everybody, right? But it might be for you, is what I've been navigating through as I'm starting to make changes in myself, in my practice, and in my family, and in my network, etc. Being a thought leader, influencer, etc. Change my camera here a little bit. So this is the inaugural live. So I don't know how long I'll stay on, but as long as I have words to say. And typically, I've been on the radio and TV and stuff like that in the past, but I spend a lot of time in quiet, if you will. I won't say solitude, but my schedule is unique in that I focus for most of the morning um, up till about 11, just really reading, writing, journaling, praying, planning, and I also do some business training. For working on my business, working on me, working on my influence in health, wealth, love, and happiness. These little sectors that, add for a phenomenal life, as I'm learning from Howard Partridge. If you haven't discovered him, go to howardpartridge.com. Again, that's howardpartridge.com. And as I'm asking around, there's a lot of folks that really haven't heard of him, but he is very known, very well known, has a awesome community, and so now I'm making a priority to learn more about his focus on helping businesses scale and having a balanced life, that kind of thing. So, getting back to my wake up time and the benefits of it. I had read an article, or actually been following a guy named Wes Watson. He was a former prisoner, and he's done amazingly well for himself. And he's tatted up, muscular, alpha male, a tough guy, but very wise, if you will, for all the things that he's gone through. But he was in prison for having a very successful drug running business in, I think, Del Mar, California. I think the Oceanside, California area, and he realized, he got himself in his mess. So while he was in prison, he decided to change himself, if you will, and that's the hardest part a lot of times for us is to lead ourselves. It's the hardest one because we're so confident in what we know, and sometimes we don't know everything we think we do. Right? We know so much that just isn't so. And so, as you pursue wisdom and as you pursue righteousness, which is right wiseness, choosing wisely because we have limited amount of time, 24 hours a day, and you can see people doing amazing things with the time that they do have. So being a good steward of time. So when I discovered that this prisoner, basically in the eyes of the world, a complete failure. I mean, if you landed yourself in prison, then maybe you didn't plan your life quite correctly, right? But there go by the grace of God go I. So there's a lot of times, we've been protected from ourselves, but for some folks, it means going to prison. For others, you may not have a choice of going to prison. It might be death, or, you may go into a trial where you go into the military or something like that, or life gives you challenges that make you become a better person overall when you've come through all the different setbacks. Well, to me, going to prison probably is one of the major setbacks. But this guy was doing 10 years of time, hard time, right? And so he decided, you know what, I'll get up at 2:45 and make changes. And so the quick gist of it is he was up before the guards, it was up before everybody else, but he would make up his rack, clean up his cell, and he would start to read the books that were starting to improve the way he thought, you know. And so I said, well, you know what? If a prisoner can do that, he did it for 15 years, and now when he got out of prison 5 years later, he amassed amazing success, bought a major mansion here recently in San Diego area, and has exotic cars. And of course, some of these things are just tools. I mean, it gets the attention of folks. His message again is hardcore, but come January 1st, I decided, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and set my clock to 2:45, right? And people freaked out. All of a sudden, I'm getting comments from people that I hadn't really heard from. All of a sudden, people care about me, like about what my schedule is. And so, but again, as I am searching for how to make improvements and how serious and committed I am to those improvements, I'm discovering a whole new world, right? And so, come January 1st, what I learned in my training is anything that you do, don't necessarily jump in it rashly. Test it first. So just like I did the 4 a.m. schedule, I tested it. I didn't do it like hardcore. I'd do it 3 times a week. And then I discovered, hey, I really like this. I want to do this as a life discipline, an atomic habit, if you will. And so what I wound up doing is kicking back my alarm clock from 4 to 3:45 to 3:30 to 3:15 to 3 o'clock. I had planned to take 6 weeks to really get into the routine of the schedule of 2:45. And so once I got into that routine, really I was just on a different time zone. In fact, I even had more energy. I didn't want to go to bed. I mean, my ideal bedtime now is around 7 or 8, maybe 9 at the latest. Because you do want to get some REM sleep, as they say. But even as people were citing medical studies and all that kind of stuff, it's in circadian rhythms and all that. Well, what I've learned is when you're motivated and you're inspired by a mission, you can't wait to get up and get at your goal and your assignment, your calling, whatever you want to call it. I mean, some people dread getting up, right? I don't dread getting up. I just can't wait to get up. In fact, I want to get rest and all that. So I want to have that balance. But, every morning is a new day, and I've got a routine schedule that I follow, et cetera, which again, I'll be sharing in some of the content that we're creating here. And so, with the zero dark network concept and how that got started, I really have to give credit to a really interesting person that I've gotten to meet over the years by the name of Asa Williams. I call him Awesome Asa, but met him through Cool Ministries. I'm going to do a testimonial for Boyd Harrell. He's asked me to write a testimonial of his prison ministry. And for I guess I have a heart for those that have done time but are deciding to change their life. So same thing with military folks. You kind of are a guest of the government when you go to boot camp, and your rights are pretty much stripped away for the most part. And there's some treasures and pleasures like coffee, chow hall, quiet time that you get, but it's not fun when you don't have your freedom. But it can teach you a lot of things about yourself, about perseverance. Even if some of these guys, like the one that did 10 years in prison, I mean, that's a long time to be in a cell, right? So that's a super challenge. But even if we look at history, there's people that have done time unjustly, etc. So having compassion and just being a good person, right, in helping where you can. So was Asa Williams. So he was a volunteer. I guess he got paid for some of the work, but he would do sound at the church, and I just admired his diligence. He's an Army vet himself, and I would put on an event. Sometimes these events are spontaneous, and there's not like a strong time to plan, because when you're moving as the spirit dictates, then you have to rely on just the faith of things coming together, especially in the nonprofit world. So what's interesting about working in the nonprofit world, there's so many brilliant people that are selfless, dedicated servants, if you will. But Asa was one of those persons. He had a good talent, and I could see him being diligent to make the events that we were planning come to fruition, and put in the extra hours, going the extra miles. So when he reached out to me earlier this year, you know, my bent was that he wasn't my client, wasn't somebody I wanted to work with per se, that or didn't understand if I should work with him. That's another thing that I've learned before I got into things. I need to pray about it and decide if this is something I need to do. But then the Lord reminded me of his selfless dedication. I said, you know what, Asa helped me, and so whatever I've got to do to help him, that's what I'm going to do, right? I think Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough other people, you're going to get what you want, right? And so that's kind of been my mission. And so when Asa reached out to me, one of the things that I shared with him, and I didn't know as much as I've known about him, but he's an amazing person because he's had several businesses, and some have failed, some have succeeded, but he's dedicated to, like, okay, I want to get really serious about my success mission, right? And so one of the things I've been championing with people in my circle, and I attribute this to Kathy Bowersox with Network in Action. We've been working with Veterans Business Force for a couple of years, but one of the projects, or one of the teachings that she did with us, was discovering your why, right? So I kind of knew my why, but I really hadn't sat down to think about it and to analyze it and to focus on it. I was just, I'm gonna say blind faith, but just really going as a spirit led and being motivated every day to go pursue it, and not really concern myself with tracking or analyzing, just understanding that this journey I was on was for a reason. And now it's making more sense than ever. And so I kind of feel like, I'm definitely in acceleration mode. But, when she told me about the why exercise, I think there's a book written about it called Finding Your Why, or Discovering Your Why, or Start with Why, or something like that. I forget the name of the title, but unfortunately, again, this is spontaneous. Maybe I'll take some notes next time. And so once I got into that, usually the Lord gives me some other insight that goes a little bit deeper, And so as I understood, like, Jesus wept, for example. And I said, well, why did he cry? Why did he was a man of many sorrows. Of course, in a world of depression, there are people that are crying because they're defeated, right? They have no hope. They're at their last straw. So, what I see happening, there's a lot of people in that condition, but Jesus wept because he saw the condition that we were in, and he had compassion. So that motivated him to do his mission, which was he had to go to the cross. He had to die in order to be victorious, right? So what I wound up taking away from Finding Your Why, once I zeroed in on my why, I wrote it out. was challenged by lady Molly Brown, who was an Army vet on the East Coast in Connecticut, and her expertise was mindset engineering. And so, she asked me to think about that perfect day, right? So that perfect day and what it looked like, and I wrote it out into what was kind of like a movie script, if you will, because I had thought about what I ate for breakfast, what clothes I was wearing, what car I was driving, the message I was going to deliver to that special person, basically my wife, telling her she didn't have to go to work anymore if she decided not to. And we've had some conversations building up to that perfect day. Would she retire if given the opportunity? And then how do we start to like live the dream life now as we start to head in that direction? And when again I wrote this out, I kind of teared up. It got real in my subconscious, right? And then, of course, as I thought more about it, I said, well, my why will actually affect not just my wife, but me personally. It'll affect my girls. It'll affect my circle of influence. And so the more that I'm discovering with my wake up time, I have more time to read books, for example. I think last year I read 115 books by allocating 30 minutes a day to read. And now I'm reading about an hour a day. But I read 115 books. And of course, wisdom is like a bubbling brook. And I never understood that passage until I read all these books, because now that I've read these books, I kind of see like in these different books that I've read, there's some wisdom that I wouldn't have detected had I not kind of allowed my mind to flow with the information, the ideas, the experiences, the lessons learned, the facts and the statistics and the research and all that from different aspects of human behavior, business, personal biographies, etc. And so, I guess what I'm seeing now is that we are looking to help as many people as we can as fast as we can. And my wife is part of that testimony because we've been together 43 years, and I'm observing that if you're married today, it's no cakewalk. It's more like a tightrope. And there is a battle for control, and a lot of it is just misunderstanding, miscommunication, just what we've been taught, what we learned from our families, what the media, what the culture is saying. And so our biggest challenge today, if you're married, is to get it together, right? And so husband and wives, we're not enemies of each other. We're not going to shoot each other in the back, as I say, because there's none tougher than a Marine's wife. So my lady and I, we met when we were very young, teenagers, and put each other through college. And of course, we had to learn to live together and learn from the habits of our family and adjust and improvise and integrate. And I think when we were first married, she went to UT and I went to UT, but they were teaching that feminism, and then of course the world was saying that when you get married it's a 50-50 relationship, but really it's 100-100, probably 110%. But in the bottom line is I'm the one that's responsible for my household, right? And so thankfully I have a lady that God sent me, a helper, a perfect helper, and I'm learning to appreciate that more and more. As like, wow, God knew what I needed to allow me to flourish and be what I'm called to do and what we're called to do, because it's a husband and wife commitment, and it doesn't necessarily make sense sometimes. Okay, why are we doing this, and why now? And of course, we've got now young ladies, and so raising children in this culture or whatnot, but. So what I've seen is like we do have an opportunity to grow a network, and I've got various networks that I'm a part of, and I've got a mighty network of 150 people that are in my close circle. These are people that I pray for, people that I text, and you may be recipient if you're watching this of some of my texts. Sometimes I have to fight the urge to text some of my people at 03 a.m. or 04. So the Zero Dark Network, going back to Asa. So he was serious about finding his why, and he's a super analytical, smart guy. And sometimes, you have these different personality types. I don't know if you've heard of the DISC assessment. You have your dominants, your influencers, I think it's your controllers, and your social or something like that. But I forget what DISC stands for. But for the most part, I'm a high D. An influencer. So I do like to have fun, but I'm probably more mission focused, more analytical, more let's get to the point. But I'm also collaborative, and so I can take details and all that, where I think it's a C that's more controlling, but they're less extroverted, and they are maybe your engineers, your accountants, and all that. So Alice is probably a high D, high C, super, but less emotion, more details, analysis, research. So when he reached out to me, that maybe I need to discover my why. And he actually recommended a book to me, and this is I think the title of the book. It's the second book to the Start with Why. I think it's Start with Why and then Finding Your Why. So he recommended a book that he had read, or an audio book, and he recommended that I listen to it and that we get together. And basically, all I needed to do for him was to be a listener. So his assignment was to find someone that would listen to his life history, his life trajectory. And so I made a commitment to do it, but he had to do it on my schedule because I was already got my routine. I wasn't going to deviate from it. And the folks that know me, and again, it's important when you're working with people to communicate how you work. Otherwise, there's going to be a conflict, right? And so my people that know me and the new people that I do meet, I have to explain to them my schedule so they know. And of course, I make exceptions. Not everything is rigid, but with Asa coming to me, I said, look, I'm jacked this week on schedule. I said, but I need to start getting up at 2:45 because I forgot to explain that I had COVID in February, long form, which means it zapped my energy. So I've been struggling to get back into this schedule now for like 8 months, and so I'm now 2 months into it today, but. When we were talking 2 months ago, I said, man, I need to get into the schedule. I said, look, I will meet with you. I'll make time for you, and this will help me. It'll help you. I said, but you got to meet me at a Denny's at 3 a.m. And he didn't hesitate. He actually said, okay. I said, well, I was kind of, I guess, secretly saying to myself, I hope he says no. But he said yes. So thankfully, he lives in my neighborhood, not too far away. And so we brought the book. I bought the book. I read, I think half of it, and need to. In fact, I still need to complete it because we're still on the journey of finding his why. But in the pursuit of finding his why, we've actually embarked on creating a mastermind group that we're going to kind of create the model for it, and then we're going to scale it. So even though we're limited right now in location and time, the model can be replicated in any city. So if you're watching this video, hopefully you might be the person that say, yeah, I want to do this in my city, right? So the mastermind group is a formatted. So if you go to the website, zerodarknetwork.com, I have the format. And it is a faith group, if you will. So, but you don't have to be a Christian to participate. But we are going to talk about Jesus. We are going to pray, and we're basically looking to find people, the 12 key people, and we want to limit it, I guess, to 12, the 12 key people from different backgrounds. Because over the years, you probably have heard this saying that great minds think alike. And so my experience in the last 20 years is no, they don't. So there's a lot of parables out there that have been regurgitated that maybe need to be revamped, like finding the why. My take on it was if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not big enough, right? So that's going even deeper because Jesus wept, right? So my why makes me cry, and it not because I'm so excited about what my why is going to reveal, and it's going to benefit. And we're going to talk about some of these things hopefully today. So we're starting the Zero Dark Network. We're looking for 12 key people. And I tell people it's not for everybody. Not everybody's willing to make the changes they need to make. Remember, it's the silent death of the snooze button. Our habit is our habits, but our habits of what got us into the trouble. Debt is surmounting, and I'm preaching to myself on a lot of this stuff. Alcohol has distracted. I'm preaching to myself on this. My wife and I decided to cut alcohol. We're now going on 1 year, 9 months, and man, what a blessing it's been to just like not have downtime, not have arguments, having more time to improve, good rest, and then saving money. I mean, there's just so many benefits, right? So I know I'm not a teetotaler as far as telling people what they need to do or whatever, but again, our responsibility as individuals is we've got to detect the changes that we want to make, and you can help people. Like I'm in a position to like observe where people are and maybe have permission to recommend some things, and I'm so thankful that others have recommended things to me, even though I may not have seen it right away. Like I always give credit to my friend Kirby Lammers. I said Kirby Lammers saved my life. But 15 years ago, he told me I was out of balance. I think 20 years ago, and I didn't hear it, but it did resonate with me. I'm like, what does he mean I'm out of balance? I was working till 2 a.m. in the morning, pushing it, pushing it, pushing it, but I was neglecting my family and other things, right? So once he said that, I started like, you know what, he's kind of right. I need to start maybe cutting back some here and there, but I also wanted to improve fitness, physical fitness. So he's a big fitness, physical. I mean, for his age, man, he is incredibly in shape. So I think 3 or 4 years ago, I hired a trainer, for example, and I paid her for 3 years. I think it cost me like $12,000 over that time frame, but $300 a month, which I had to fit into the budget. And how I explained it to my wife, I said, "Well, we're not eating out as much, so we're probably saving 700 a month. So we're making $400 on this deal." But the lesson I learned with the trainer is, I had to pay her whether I went to the training or not, so I didn't miss hardly any. And then of course I had to start taking her advice, so I didn't take her advice right away because she told me right away, like, hey, and you got to cut the alcohol, but I didn't do that, right? So thankfully made that change. So again, the Zero Dark Network is really about identifying the people that have expertise in either law, media, social media, politics, engineering, accounting. Again, great minds don't think alike; they think differently. So marketing, business development, sales. So if you're in one of those categories, it's a free gathering, so you can come to it. It is discretionary. It's discretion, so we're not going to share what we're talking on. Maybe if you have permission to talk amongst the members, because we're all trying to figure out how to help each other. This is one of my designs that I started called the Blood of Christ. And so the Lord gave me this idea, and at first I was a little worried about doing it, but then the more He's showing me, that it's a different way to reach the people, and then He gave me this idea for a flag. So this is one of my inventions, designs, or whatnot. So the Zero Dark Network for the prototype here in Houston, we're meeting in the Cy-Fair area. And the way I look at it, we can't be everywhere. And of course, I'm a military guy, so I'm also like a strategy guy, reading a lot about generals here. And so I'm learning like how to be tactical, strategic, and then making things simple to be implementable. You know, so my territory is my zip code 77084, and so as I'm praying about my area, my neighborhood, my street, my home, I look at Nehemiah. When the wall was being rebuilt around Israel, Nehemiah had to assign responsibilities, and so one of the things he did with the households is he made them responsible for building the wall in front of their house. So they became the chink in the armor, or the weak spot, if they failed to do what they were assigned to do. But the overall plan was behind all that. So all the generals, if you will, the leaders, the engineers, construction people, the managers were thinking through the whole territory. So my territory is Cy-Fair, and so I'm really focusing in on this zip code, learning the businesses in my area, learning the people in my area. Again, last year made a lot of changes, but one of the reasons that kind of started the changes is over the years I've read the proverb, "Consider the ant, you sluggard." And so the Lord just reminded me of that verse, and I was like, Lord, well, I'm working, my guts off. I did an assessment last year. Like I said, I read 115 books. I ran 5Ks, a half marathon, donated 500 hours to the American, the veteran community, 500 hours of business training, and just being diligent and pursuing every contact, every strategy, every idea. So it really wasn't about being busy. It was just about developing systems, right? Developing daily habits. And so again, as I look at things that I'm starting and doing right now, I kind of compartmentalize it, right? It's like, you know what, I can do 15 minutes on this, and then I may schedule it, just like I'm scheduling this Zoom call now, as it became an idea to implementing. Now it's going to be part of my schedule coming every Friday at 03. I'll do this Zoom call live, and then you're welcome to come on it. Probably going to do it on Zoom right now. It's Facebook Live. I'm trying to figure out which one I should use. Probably with Zoom, I can schedule it better, and then record it, and then output it onto I don't want to say curriculum, but an archive, so that other people can benefit from the content. And then to do it right, I mean, really, I need to have somebody to translate it into text and then bullet point it out to make it of use, right? And then some other things. So Zero Dark Network, Mastermind Group, Tuesdays, right? We're doing ours here, the first prototype on Tuesday at 03 at Denny's inside Fair. They are very generous with their back room, which is kind of going to be a blessing for them because no one really is in the restaurant when I go. We go there, you know, and of course, at first, my wife was a little nervous. Well, it's kind of dark, out there, and people are drunk or whatever. And what I found, I haven't found that. It's just been quiet. Although it is an odd time of the morning, but what I did discover as well, it's also spiritually or even in history, it's considered the third watch. So when you have a military operation, like when I was in the Marine Corps boot camp, we had fire watch 24 hours. So the recruits would have to get up in pairs of two and work a 2 hour shift throughout the night. So we go to rack, hit the rack at 10. Well, fire watch was up from 10 to 12. And then from 12 to 2, there'd be another fire watch. And then from 2 to 4 would be another fire watch, right? So that 3 o'clock time frame, 03 a.m. time frame, is a unique time of the day, and I basically say it's like we're up before the devil. I'm actually up at 02:45, but when we're doing our Tuesday meeting, I got to get up at 2:30 to make it to the meeting at 3. And so the meeting's an hour and a half typically, and we're starting the prototype, right? So right now there's just myself and Asa. And those meetings that we've, sometimes as we're getting started, we've had to miss a couple of times, but we've been fighting to get consistent. So the thing is, when we've missed, it's like, okay, we understand why we got to miss this week, but we got to get back, Tuesday. So we're getting consistent in that, and then of course we've got some action items to do, and so that's what led to the website. That's what led to the format. That's what led to I'm going to be working on a video and an audio commercial that we're going to put on the website. Of course, we're going to be gathering emails, especially as we start to scale this thing. And so it'll be a community of early risers, right? A community of zero dark. Now, zero dark, in the military, we have a concept called zero dark 30, which means, you're going to be up early. It might be 5:30 typically, but you're going to be up early, 6:30, to go out and PT, to show up and be ready for duty, right? And so zero dark is one step back. Again, I was mentioning the Lord gives me insights into parables and ideas and making little tweaks and changes that actually goes deeper. Like you've heard the saying that first impressions are reality. And so what I've discovered is no, they're not. First impressions are not reality. Of course, you can be short-sighted by that and miss opportunity. And so what I like to do is detect the second, third, and fourth impression, especially for long-term battle-tested relationships, right? People that you love and care about, people that love and care about you. And you really want to be selective on who is in your circle, and you want to cultivate talent because some people, like my friend Kirby told me 15 years ago, some people have to develop, and I had to develop to be back into Kirby's circle. I'm in his circle a little bit better now, but thankfully he's gracious and merciful, and that's really kind of how we have to be as leaders. Is like we were once failures too, in other people's eyes or whatever, and then give permission to yourself to forgive yourself on many things. The thing is, you're not the same person you were 30 years ago, 40 years ago than you are today. So hopefully today, because of your life lessons, man, you're in a position to accelerate your influence, and you can capitalize on all of the experience and learning that you acquired. These life lessons that only you can apply. Your unique creative bent that God gave you, right? So again, Zero Dark Network, if you're interested in being a part of that Cypher group. And so out of the discussion with Asa, and I'm really, again, so glad that I challenged him and he challenged me, and we are now like-minded and getting to know each other. We trust each other. I got his back, he's got my back. And, so far we're even looking at buying a company together. We were approached to look at maybe potentially buying a publishing company. And I've never bought a company before, but we're in an opportunity to build it into my legacy or our legacy, because I do like reading books, and I do see as a marketing person producing like podcasts, producing authors, and interestingly, 87% of people out there have a book in them. They just haven't written it. You can now write a 30-page book, and that can be your calling card. But the key is like you got to allocate that time, right? Consider the ant. Allocate the time, 15 minutes a day. By the next month or so, you can have a book written, right? So out of our discussion with the Zero Dark that we've had with just the limited group that we want to do, we decided, hey, we want to have a bigger group that's not necessarily a mastermind, but it is a change me community. The people that said, you know what, I want to attend. Maybe I can't attend all the time, but I can attend as I can. And so we're going to do a Saturday group. And Saturday is actually an awesome day, too, to do something like this. And as is Friday for the Zoom call. Because I know a lot of my Jewish friends and my Christian Messianic Christians, they really honor the Sabbath, and they believe the Sabbath is from Friday for Friday evening through Saturday morning, right? And so, and for me as a Christian, while I appreciate Friday through Sunday, but I am my work is my work, but my Sunday really is my day of complete. As I'm learning to apply, my friend Susan Simon says, "Andy, where's your white space?" Because I'm always reading, always doing stuff. I said, what, I need to make Sunday my white space, which means I don't really want to schedule anything except for going to church, and then just enjoy the Sunday with my wife, with no real agenda, although I probably want to read, but, maybe just like, just enjoy, right? So I'm trying to be intentional about that. And then I may get to a point where I just allocate a day, like a Tuesday during the week, to augment my Sunday, but where I just take time to just relax, enjoy, just refreshing. So anyway, making these changes here and there, but that's some of the stuff we talk about. Again, the four key areas of life are health. You're only as good as your health, right? At any age, you can start to make improvements, right? Like I hired my trainer 3 or 4 years ago. But I'm up 30 pounds because I got the long form COVID. And so, but it's not the kind of weight that I had when I was drinking alcohol, right? Bourbon or whatever. Didn't drink a lot, but it was enough to, have a calorie increase, if you will. But I was maintaining my weight because of the exercise. So now I'm up 30 pounds, but I think the weight's going to come off a lot faster. And then I made a commitment to run a marathon, although I'm way behind my schedule to do one this year. And there may be time that I may be able to do it, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to do a complete marathon this year. But I'm adjusting. So the thing is, my goal is to be the man, the person. I want to meet the guy that ran the marathon, me, And so I want to do that. And I may continue to do that. It may just be a one-time deal, but that's a commitment that I've made. So I've got to accelerate my cardio. So that's one area is health. So I'm looking at different ways to increase my health, work my health, weightlifting training, working with F3. I mean, I was working out with those guys this last year, and I kind of had to cut back from that because just the energy zap. But I'm working towards getting back. So that's the thing, is about consistency of focus. The mission is the mission, and I can set these goals, but I don't want to lie to myself, right? And so the thing is, by setting the mission of focusing on health, focusing on wealth, focusing on love, focusing on happiness, then I'm always going towards the mission, and the goals will start to manifest themselves, right? Because that's what's driving me. I've got to build up this section in health. I've got to build up and when I talk about wealth, I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about wealth of relationships, wealth of ideas, because ideas really is where the wealth building is, right? There's two forms of thought in battle that we're seeing, a battle of wills. There's one of limit, and there's one of limitlessness. And where limitlessness comes from is the creative genius that God gave us, right? But there is a difference too. I just read a book by Watchman Nee called The Latent Soul. So the human effort is it's limited, right? Now we're limited in a way as far as as Adam, when he was first created, was unlimited. But at the fall, he became limited. So human effort is limited. So, but Adam had latent capability, right? So that's where, in the human world, yes, there's inventions, yes, there are creations, but a lot of it is stuff that God already created, like gravity. Oh, you discovered gravity. Well, God created it. It took you that long, or took humankind that long to discover it. So with God, that's the spirit, right? So what I've learned in my walk is there's artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence, but there's really only one infinite intelligence, one original intelligence, the original designer, and it's a replication or an attempt to replicate what God is, right? So I know a lot of people are spooked out by AI, but it's only as good as the human knowledge and the human input, right? And again, every person's journey is unique, and the spirit is hidden knowledge. 'Cause I think the Bible says it's the glory of kings to search out a matter. So that's our 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 bent is like the Lord's given us an assignment individually to go pursue whatever it is. Though it come hell high water, you're wired and bent for that mission. And other people may or may not understand it. And so that's where the conflict has, because a lot of people are coming from their mindset and they don't understand, your journey, right? So a lot of times you have to be careful people projecting their fears, their doubts onto you, right? And then that requires prayer, right? Wiseness, righteousness, right? So that's why I'm getting up at 2:45 in the morning. I said, look, I want to get up. And the first thing I need to do is, of course, before I get out of bed, I think I read Doug Stringer's book, The Leadership. There's I forget the name of the book. I have to find out. I'll have to reference it later. But it has something to do with the rising leadership. And before he gets out of bed, he does what's called the horizontal prayer. So I do that for 5 minutes. It's like I set my alarm clock, but sometimes I get up before it even goes off because again I can't wait to get up. So I may sit there like I got up at 12:30. My alarm was set for 2:45, but I was like, okay, do I get up now? Because a lot of times if I force it, and then I'll be tired all day. So I said, well, I think I can get up at 12:30 and not be tired all day. Fridays are kind of a blessing day for my wife and I. She works in oil and gas business, but she's off at 11. So we usually go to lunch, and then we come home and take a nap. So it's just a special day. So I'm like, I think I can do this. So I was up at 12:30. But when I get up, I want to do the horizontal prayer, and then I want to take a few minutes, 5 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes, maybe even longer to pray. And pray is like, I don't know, recharging the battery. It's like taking a shower in the spirit. And there's all kinds of religions and non-religions that do some form of meditation or whatever. But again, the latent soul is tied with the human effort. So the spiritual component as a believer is that now it's not just me, it's the Holy Spirit, and me and the Holy Spirit working together. Then it's not my effort. So the Lord gives me an idea. So I always give him credit for the ideas. It's like, yeah, I've been on the journey to read, but it takes effort. And that's one of the things he charged Adam with is, you're going to work the land, right? So it takes effort this side of heaven to do and be diligent with the limited resources or even the expanded resources. So again, talking about wealth, I'm talking about wealth of experiences, wealth of vitality. Yesterday's gone. I tried to live the best day yesterday that I could. And yesterday, I think, for example, we took my daughter and her boyfriend to the airport, and we could have told them no, y'all find your own way, But to me and my wife, it was an honor and a pleasure to be available and to bless them and to be a part of their journey, and to pray over their journey because they're going to be there for 5 days in Seattle, and I want them to have an amazing, incredible experience while they're in that city. So I even did some research on YouTube and wanted to find out, hey, I've never been to Seattle. What are some fun things to do there? So I sent her a video, if she hasn't done it already, to give them some ideas of things to do. So as we map out our future, yes, our future will include travel. I mean, we're already planning a trip to Italy. My wife and I, she's never been, I've never been. And so as I'm reading books on Napoleon Bonaparte and discover like, wow, he actually created Italy, the Italian flag, and he designated the Kingdom of Italy. And he was all about creating constitutions, and he really had a love and respect for the Italian people, the opera and the arts, etc. So again, the wake up schedule that I have, it allows me to really open up a life that I see, and it's not perfect yet, but it's more perfect than it was, going back 2 years, right? So it's getting better and better every day. So yesterday was incredible, but yesterday's gone. I can't do anything about yesterday, but I can live today from what I experienced yesterday, right? And tomorrow may never come. So a lot of people haven't placed a value of how limited we can't live today like we're going to live forever in this side of the world, right? There's a lot of things that we want to accomplish. People talk about bucket lists and all that, which is kind of an interesting concept. you know. So, but today is the only day that I really have, right? So if you knew today was going to be your last day, how would you live it, right? And that's a sobering thought, you know. Now you don't want to go crazy, like, you know what, I'm going to just like not throw care to the wind and not worry about it. So I want to go out, doing what I was supposed to do that day. And it is like I'm living the one thing I'm doing right now, for example, is the one thing I should be doing, right? And that's really kind of how I've learned to prioritize my life. Last year I read 115 books, like I said, but the one book out of 100, 115, besides the Bible, I read 66 books of the Bible. So you can deduct that from the 115. So of the balance of the books that I read, the one thing changed my life, completely revamped my schedule. And I can talk more about that later. I'm not sure how much time we have now. I wanted to limit this to 4. I got 10 more minutes. The one thing basically said, if it's not tied to my someday again is retiring my lady and then helping other people to walk away from their jobs through various things that we're looking at in business startups, business acquisition, real estate, crypto, software, marketing. So my challenge to folks is like, you need to think about growing your company, maybe getting out of corporate America because, they're going woke and there's a lot of things that you may not agree with, right? So, start your own company, start your own side hustle, right? So we want to be facilitators of that. And so detecting what people need, want to do with their life, right? And so that's what I'm on this journey for, and making myself available. I say, God's given me talent, He's given me insight. So health, wealth, love. That's the people you care about. Those are the people that, like my wife and I've been together 43 years, and I've taken her for granted before, and she's taken me for granted before. And like we've been talking, it's like, these are actually precious days. It's a miracle that we've been able to be together so long. I'm talking about like I could work for a company somewhere and I'd be traveling all over, and I'd be gone, if you will, and she would be gone. So we've been thankful that we've been in the same location. Like when I was in the military, I never was deployed, but other people are deployed, and it's a challenge. It's a difficult, so the burdens are real. As I forget what my daughters say, that the struggle is real, right? So love, like how can I be intentional with my daughters? They're young ladies, 23 and 20 now. One's at A&M doing really well. The other, I think, is going to go more the entrepreneur route. Very at a very young age, she always showed signs of that in music and talent, and so I think she's rediscovering that latent gift that God gave her, and to explore what that always wonderment, adventure. We used to have road rules, so that's what I say she has that desire to go see the world, and so we're encouraging that, because like, well, and she's challenging us too. It's like, hey, yeah, you're right. We haven't gone and seen the world like we want, so we're making plans there. And then happiness. So what are the areas in your life that you want to develop so that you have happiness experiences, right? So and that can be integrated into your business. That can be integrated into your health journey. It can be integrated in your wealth journey, in your love journey. So on the happiness sides, being intentional, like, typically my schedule is 2:45 to 11. I'm working on my business, working on me, allocating time to the gym, allocating time to train in my business. And then from 11 to 4, I'm doing what I call my rat killing. That's my phone calls, that's my development, that's my work that needs to be accomplished, building up my resources, my networks, etc., and building my dream team. That's what I'm learning from Howard Partridge, is I've got to build a dream team, or otherwise the dream ain't going to be possible, right? You have to give up the dream if you haven't built up your team. So I've got to find my key people. And so that's what I'm on my journey. And in fact, Gary Keller, in his book, The One Thing, he fired himself as CEO for 3 years, and he was tyrannical. I mean, if you were late to a meeting, he shut the door. So he just did not value, the people. We're social, right? And that's where we have to be mindful and have that grace and mercy that I talked about. We can't be authoritative. Even though as a Marine, I'm bent to be like, short and blunt, and I've got to fight that tendency, because I can, if I need to, I can be forceful. As iron sharpens iron, and sometimes you have to be the iron that sharpens iron, because there's different, as the Lord showed me, there's different grades of iron. There's cast iron, which is hard. It's strong, but it breaks, right? Then you've got Japanese steel, Damascus steel. So there's different grades of of steel and iron is in those products, right? And so sometimes you are the iron that needs to sharpen the iron, right? And some people will break, and some of those people can't be in your circle because they're not the same grade, if you will. So I'm always trying to elevate my grade, if you will. And so thankfully, the Lord has brought me mighty men and women that are the same grade. They have the same purpose. They're undaunted. They're relentless. They're fearless. They're courageous, and they've been battle tested. Their armor is not shiny, because I always kind of giggle a little bit when people pray, their shiny armor. I'm like, well, you haven't done anything if your armor's shiny. My armor's got pock marks. It doesn't have rust in it. It's got dents. It's got holes. We've been in some stuff. And I'm more likely to trust you if you've learned some life lessons, right? You've had some setbacks. So even now, as I'm evaluating people, that's my friend Wally. We just did a podcast. I'm not sure we're going to release it, but he said we're analyzing. We're not judging people, but we're evaluating. New levels have new devils, right? So you have to decide who you're going to let in your circle, not that out of ego, not out of love for someone, but some people can hurt your team. They can hurt you, in different ways. There's a Jezebel spirit. If you don't know what that is, that's a controlling spirit. So people are manipulative. So I've been taken advantage of. Thankfully, I had a good friend of mine, Denise Trabig. She asked me, or she recommended a book called 48 Laws of Power. And I'd never read that book. And of course, when I announced that I was reading that book, all kinds of Christian friends were like, "Oh, Christians shouldn't read that book." And I'm like, Jesus lamented that the children of darkness were wiser than children of light. So, as a right wiseness leader, right, righteousness, it behooved me to learn the laws of power and how people think. So, in the book, he profiles all these case studies of things that got people in trouble because they didn't know how people really were. Don't outshine the king, for example. The kings would banish people that took away their limelight. They became a threat. So just knowing stuff like that. Um, I'm going to wrap this call. I'm not sure if I have any viewers now, but you're welcome to share this link. I'd love to hear your comments. I'm so thankful for the people that, when I do post in the morning, they do respond, they do share. This is my office. At some point, I am looking to be capitalized. I've got a potential investor, and it's going to be a significant amount. But what I want to do is hire 3 MBA types, marketing experts, leaders, young, next generation, some not so, because I always appreciate my sages. And for most men and women, well, mostly men. I read a book called Fathered by God by John Eldridge. Is for men. Typically, we go through our cowboy stage, where we're sowing our royal oats, and a lady never wants to marry a cowboy. She needs to consider marrying a warrior or a king, right? Because the cowboys are boys, basically. Then you go through your warrior stage. So every man wants to know, do I have what it takes? My own father was a man's man, and he tried to teach me what he could, but I had to learn my own lessons, right? And so as I'm reflecting, he passed away over 20 years ago, of his work ethic, his respect in the community, his celebrations he liked to have. Of course, he was wanting to go to college. He never finished, but he was attempting to read and make changes and be creative. He did a lot of advertising work in the grocery store business that he came from. So as I learned, I said, okay, Dad, you try to teach me these things. I should have learned them. I probably would have been that much further ahead on this stuff. So you go through your warrior stage. Do I have what it takes? Like my dad used to say, becoming a man is a tough boot to fill. And I didn't understand that until I put on a combat boot in boot camp. Right now that I'm thinking about it, so yeah. So, but that combat boot came with a lot of running, a lot of yelling, a lot of discipline, a lot of learning, because in boot camp they just dump you and immerse you in so many expected, unexpected, and just preparing you for the mission ahead, right? but they don't prepare you on what to do out of the military. And that's what we're helping with vets is like, let's teach you how to start a company. We're bringing in corporations to hire vets, etc. But for the most part, teach a man to fish, right? Get them gainfully productive in society, but also applying. I think I did a post on it. I'll talk more about this as well. The battle plan, right? What we learn in the military, we can apply in entrepreneurship. Let's take territory. Let's assign responsibilities. Let's get systems and redundancies. And you got to have your generals and you got to have your grunts, right? So that's kind of the journey that I'm on with this platform is being a facilitator, idea person. And people have said, "Oh, are you a coach?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not really a coach." And then in Howard Partridge's book, the Monday Morning Christian, where we get the definition of coach is from carriage. So the carriage takes you from point A to point B. So as just an influencer leader, basically now wanting to invest in the next generation, the millennials, Gen Zers, I'm more of a facilitator, minister, if you will, a watchman. I tell people I'm not a prophet, but as a marketing strategist, I kind of have to be prophetic and see the opportunity that a lot of people don't see. So the value of what we do is not the social media, not photography, not videography. That's all good stuff. But to me, as a marketing person, as a scholarship marketing person, scholarly meaning that I do have a degree in marketing and I learned all the best practices. Not all, continue to always to learn because just like in law, you can never learn all the law, right? But you can know enough to be dangerous and be effective and be incredible, legendary, if you will. So as I look at my role in marketing, as I've had an opportunity to work with legends, and so that's challenged me to live the life that movies are made of. I've got some folks that are very famous and movies have been made about them. As iron sharpens iron, it's like wow, they're the people that I want to emulate and people that I want to be like, and then live that vitality life. Like every day is an adventure. Every day, is an opportunity to leave a legacy. So moving from your cowboy stage to your warrior stage to now your king stage. So a lot of folks that are in their 40s to 50s, even 60s are in your king stage, right? So as believers, and this a lot of times applies to women as well, is if we're going to rule and reign with Christ, then it really is incredible. It is behooves us to learn to be kingly, right? So that's my prayer is the Lord teach me to be kingly, right? And so if you read the book of Kings 1 and 2, a lot of those kings failed. There's only one righteous king that prevailed. That was Jesus Christ, right? And so now we have the failures of the other kings that we can learn from, right? We don't want to be like those kings. We want to be kings that are prepared to lay down our crowns for the King of Kings, right? But we are assigned territory. Like I said, my territory is 77084, but I also claim my area side fair, but I also claim my city, my state, my nation, and we're also integrated in the Great Commission, which is to make disciples of nations. And so we do have influence, and we have had influence internationally, right? But, anyway, I'm really excited about this journey. So the next phase is your sage. So you become a cowboy for a man, fathered by God. You become a warrior. Otherwise, you can be stuck. You can be stuck at the cowboy stage and never grow up, right? A warrior says, you know what? I am battle tested. I can prove myself. And I'm not afraid of the enemy. I'm not afraid of, challenges, right? So, but you don't want to necessarily be stuck in the warrior stage. And the Lord has wired me as a warrior. I've pushed back on a lot of these agendas and put my reputation, my life, never did combat, but we've been in some dangerous situations here in the U.S. with the protests and riots and Antifa, BLM riots and all that kind of stuff, right? But we looked the enemy in the eye. I'm talking about the communists, the Satanists, the witches, and all that kind of stuff, right? But we didn't blink. And so the authority and Planned Parenthood, right? So the authority and the power of presence, spiritual combat, is what was prophesied over me a couple of years ago. So there's spiritual warfare and there's spiritual combat. Well, spiritual combat is being in the territory, being on the battlefield. And for some, like our veterans, they're in the enemy's territory where they can get shot, they can get killed. But it's the same in the U.S. right now. Crime is on the rise, right? So as a sage, basically you survived all these issues and challenges. So you may be in your 70s and 80s. I really love Stan Goss. I'm probably gonna get to see him this morning, but he's something 82 or 85 or something. Like he's up there in age, but he's still out there doing it. And he's consulted with some of the big leaders of our time. So he's the guy that recommended the book that I read, Fathered by God, as well as Eddie Smith. He's a sage influencer to me. Worldwide Publishing is his company, but he's 82 yet now, but he's been giving me advice on my book, The Marketing of Good, that I'm writing. And we're going to have lunch next week. So he always makes himself available. We have this monthly lunch that we do. And so I just want to surround myself with incredible, bright, brilliant people that are battle tested. Wally Wood, he's 72, He's been in the media force for Christian broadcasting, delivering news on technology, covering NASA. So these sages a lot of times get pushed to the corner, right? In the Native American community, they are highly respected, highly regarded. The elders are, right? And so I think that I think Stan Goss has a ministry called Crowns of Glory, So his mission is to connect the sages with the kings and the warriors and the cowboys, to be available to help guide them to their transition and promotion, if you will, in the kingdom and in business, right? So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this live stream. It's the first inaugural, so totally unscripted. Sometimes I just like doing things spontaneous. And what I've learned in the spontaneousness of it, in the churning of the waters. In fact, that's one of the 48 laws of power, is to catch the big fish, you have to churn the waters. So get in there and mix it up. I used to tell my daughter, Kayla, when she was like 6 years old, taking karate, she was a little bitty thing, but man, she had fast hands and feet. I said, baby, get in there and mix it up, and she would. She was, she was dangerous, and she didn't realize it, how dangerous she was. But we also used to tell our girls, they don't know they can't do stuff. So that's really kind of our challenge, and that would be the big takeaway for today, is to be childlike. God delights in us, and I think he delights in our wonderment, every day as a new creation. It's not a dread, right? It's like, yeah, you may be going through some stuff, but this too shall pass, right? Hopefully. So you want to lift that stuff up in prayer. Things come at you. I mean, last week my wife was taken out, man. She had a severe body rash thing, and it wouldn't go away. She's never had this before, And so I just lifted her up in prayer, and we just kind of rested in the Lord and said, okay, we don't know what this challenge is, but we're going to plow through it, and thankfully recovered, and now we're back on mission. And so I pray that you have an awesome day today if you watch this thing. And then I'd love your input, any ideas, comments, subjects you'd like for me to talk about even. But I do want to encourage you, if you're interested in the Zero Dark Network and you want to help us to facilitate growing this, then reach out to me. My phone number is 713-560-3348. And my email is andy@andyvaladez.com. That's VALADEZ.com. And I'm going to sign out.
My name is Andy Valadez, founder of Marketing Dynamics. The late Peter Drucker, the father of management theory, believed marketing was critical to your business. He said the purpose of a business is to create a customer through marketing and innovation. Strategic marketing equals immediate success. We offer you speed to market without the speeding tickets. Work smarter, harder, faster. Marketing Dynamics, because the market never stays the same. Please visit teammarketingdynamics.com.